Hey everybody, happy Friday for those of you that are watching this when I publish it. Just picked up a copy of the White Dwarf for this week. I'll admit, I actually don't typically buy White Dwarf. I typically just catch kind of what's going on Spiky Bits, the YouTube channel, because he's actually, Rob Bear over there is pretty good at putting those up quite a bit, and I find that he presents it pretty good, and I typically have just never bought them in the past. Now, I never really looked at them. I guess what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to quickly show the issue, because it actually has the Skitarii army that's coming out in there. It's showing pictures and rules and things. I just wanted to share my initial impressions on that. Before I do that, though, as I just started, I wanted to share my initial impressions of just White Dwarf. I realize this isn't new for most people, but maybe for those of you that are like me that don't purchase it, I just wanted to point out a couple of things, just my initial observations. I have not purchased it in years. I have a couple of copies on my shelf from like eons ago. So there's no comparison at all. But I was actually really surprised as how reasonable it was. And one of the reasons why I haven't really bought White Dwarf is I thought it would be like something like $10 or $12. And I think there's a Warhammer Visions as well that is published that's probably more expensive. Maybe that's what confused me. But they only charged me like a little over $5 Canadian, which is really like the price of a latte, and I don't drink lattes, but very reasonable in my mind. And one of the things that I was surprised, it was wrapped, and it's got this really nice glossy cover. It's really good. For all intents and purposes, this is kind of like a Codex cover before they went to hardcover. It's actually not bad. I wanted this because I knew the rules were coming out. I was perhaps a little naive, but in seeing full rules inside and thinking that I'd just be able to use this, even if I just wanted the troops they talked about. But I'll talk about that in a second. Overall, I'm really happy with this. I've seen these gone through before, but I'd never really I've got my lamp above here, but they're actually, despite being glossy from the light here, they have a very nice matte kind of look to them when you don't have light directly shining right on it. The quality of the paper and the pictures is actually really pretty good. I'll be honest, if there was a subject every week in White Dwarf that I was interested in, I'd probably pick it up every week now that I've seen it and I've opened it up and looked at it. So I'm not going to take too much longer on that. But I just wanted to mention that for those of you, like this is considered to be, what they worded it in the very beginning, is that this is a pretty special edition. Like they said, this is a monumentous issue of White Dwarf because they're introducing a brand new army for Warhammer 40,000. Say hello to the Skitarii, the vast and horrific military legions of the Adeptus Mechanicus. So this is pretty cool. Like they've got like the paint splatter that teaches you how to paint them. They've got the rules. They've got like introductory pictures, and they've got some fluff, and then they've got a whole section on fluff, which is really why I bought this. To be honest, when I was thinking about it, I'd heard that they had this section on fluff for the Adeptus Mechanicus in here, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to go down and pick that up, because you guys know that I've been talking about that a lot. So, a couple things. One, for those of you that have been keeping an eye on this at all, you'll know that they're basically releasing the infantry for the Skitarii, so the Rangers and the Vanguards in squads of 10. That's actually really impressive. It's the way I think they should do it, but they're doing it for a really reasonable price. So I think that's like a really nice direction that Games Workshop is taking with this army, and being able to get a pretty reasonable priced 10-person kit. Apparently there's lots of components and lots of variety, which has been the case with a lot of the plastic kits so far. I guess I have trouble with new models a lot because I kind of form these images in my head. I'm comparing them to the Forge World Mechanicum. So initially when these models came out, I was really kind of not sure. In particular the Vanguard, the heads actually kind of remind me of the Thralls a bit, and so that's kind of a good thing, I think, from Forge World. They have that sort of tin can head that's not what I think of when I think of like a tech priest. You know, I mean, it's a very different look. These guys, I think they look pretty good. I really do like the alpha there photo. I think it looks pretty cool. Now, one of the things that there are a lot of different kind of head types, like I mentioned. The photography in here, you may have seen some of this already, but there are really some cool weapons and various gadgets that they do describe in here. You get the actual equipment and guns and things. Now, these are the Rangers, which look a little bit more like typical Skitarii to me, or what I would I say typical, but what I would imagine them to look like based on the imagery of tech priests over the years. I'm pretty sure I'm going to pick up a set of these guys. Like I'm not completely sure how I'm going to do my army yet. I'll call it Cult of Mechanicus army because that is a bit more encompassing. But I think these guys are going to fit well for what I'm thinking, which I'll talk about more in a different video. This has like some sort of electro power maul. They actually call it the an arc maul, which is really cool looking. Some new kinds of pistols, some pretty cool sniper guns. These guys are also in packs of 10. I initially thought these were going to be a combined kit. It probably makes sense that they're not the Vanguard that I just showed in these guys, just because you get more options now without it. Now, one of the big things they're showing here are the Walker. These images have been flooded throughout the net. There's two versions of this too, sort of like a Vanguard and a Ranger version. So like those two models I just showed. I wasn't really sure what to think about this. I'm just going to show another picture here. I wasn't really sure what to think about it when I first saw it. You know, I think for all intents and purposes, I'm not really critical at all of this release as far as the models. I think they've done a really, really good job. The question is just sort of whether it fits with my image of the army I want. I'm not set on these at this point, but I think they did a really cool job with it. And I'm also kind of interested to see this with a different kind of paint job. Instead of the red Martian green color, like sort of like a darker look, maybe more metallics and things like that. But really interesting. Like they've got like a servitor in here. Apparently the fluff is these guys constantly walk. They don't they don't understand completely how they work anymore because it's old technology. And if they stop moving, then they'll shut down. They can't get them started again. I think is kind of funny. Here's a little close up on the servitor that's actually sitting there in the chest, and he's basically permanently connected into this thing as well. It's pretty wild. And here's another version. Now, couple of quick things. There's about a few different weapon loadouts, and to be honest, when I think of some of the more shooty weapon loadouts, like I kind of like the look of this one a bit more. But there's like 4 different heads that you can swap with your Rangers and your Vanguards that come with this, and this I love. As much as I love it on here, if I do get one of these and there's extras like this, I'm thinking that I'm going to sculpt like a Titan, a Knight Titan pilot, and I'd love to put one of these heads on it. They just look great. So there's a lot of cool opportunities for kit bashing if you're into that. I'm going to be doing a fair bit of sculpting on my own, but this release is releasing a new paint. It looks sort of like one of the technical paints we've already gotten, except reddish orange, and then its own. They're coming out with their own transfer there. So the other thing I noticed that with everything I saw online, they've got a really nice, cool picture on the back here. And with everything, and it shows Ultramarines, sorry for the glare here, but it shows Ultramarines, it shows some Knights in the back, and then it shows just a whole host of these guys. And these are the ones that I just showed. So it's the Vanguard, you know, a lot of Vanguard, and then the Skitarii on the side. One of the things that I caught, because I liked the Skitarii already, Rangers. I'm sorry I keep calling them Skitarii. That's the general term, but they're really, this is all Skitarii, but these are the Skitarii Rangers. This guy here, this head, it's the first place I saw it. apparently there are a few heads, and actually it looks human on the side. There are a few heads that are unhooded heads, and this is the only one that I've seen a picture of for the Rangers. That to me is awesome, and I just was really excited. He's got the Arc Maul, which I think is really cool too. So I was really impressed to see that. I don't know what you guys think, but I know that the Adeptus Mechanicum have been around forever in 40K, but whenever I see these guys, I imagine them in the desert, the first thing I think of are Jawas. And so I have like the whole Jawa sounds like going on in the background when I'm seeing them. Hope that doesn't ruin it for anybody, but I think it's kind of funny. I actually like these, so I think these are a definite. I'm going to pick them up, that kit. I'm wondering about these guys. I'm not so sure. The fluff is really nice that they talk about in here. They really, likely it'll be something that'll be in the codex anyway, but this book's a pretty good quality book, and to be honest, I'm completely fine with what I spent on it. It's got, when we have all these various versions of the rules that come out, and you get the fluff in so many iterations that's the same, it's kind of nice to get something somewhat fresh. And so this has got 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of solid fluff, and then each unit they talk about it a little bit as well. They go into the some background material, but yeah, you know, initially I was a little disappointed when I saw the models, just because I've been like looking at the Forge World Mechanicum every day, just kind of building up in my mind what everything else should look like. But after seeing it, I think I'm going to be interested to trying some different paint jobs on these. I won't be surprised if I pick these up too. The Walker I'm just not sure about at this point. I'm not saying no to it yet. But exciting times. It's like a new army for 40K. For those that are just diehard 40K fans, that's a big deal to get a full release. So I guess it's going more models are coming out. I'm really interested to see the HQs, and I think there's going to be another vehicle / walker coming out as well in the future. What my mind is really going to is how I'm going to combine this with some 40K Mechanicum. Now, I started to talk about this, but in the fluff in here, they talk about how the Skitarii, which are a military wing of the Cult Mechanicus, oftentimes will ally with the Legio Cybernetica, which, for those of you that follow this stuff, like the Legio Cybernetica is essentially the Forge World, a lot of the models that they produce for the pre-heresy stuff, they're Legio Cybernetica, so they're bots, like they're automatons, you know, that are controlled, but they're not human at the core. I mean, many of them are not. Where these guys were humans. They kind of view it now as that they're less, or they're more than human now, or they're, you know, I don't know, they have a saying, but they're transformed, you know, and so, but still human brain, you know, human, etc. Cyborg. So yeah, you know, exciting times. I think this is a cool issue. I'm kind of glad I picked up this White Dwarf, and I'm not going to be so hesitant to pick it up now in the future. I won't just write it off, and it's not as expensive as I thought, and the quality is actually higher than I thought. So good on GW for this publication. It's kind of funny I'm talking about something that being Mr. Obvious, like something that's been around for a long time probably, but it's actually quite good. So, alright, well, I'll be back with another video pretty shortly. I'm just going to do just a what's on the hobby desk, just talk about that a little bit. Okay, talk to you guys later.